exciting to be able. I know when we go to boot camp, it's like adding advisory service. You're building it, you're sharing it, or you're buying it, right? And so in your
That's
case,
right.
you're very intentional about the way that you guys have done that. Thinking about the last 11, 12 years as you and Jessica were put in, charged to build this, and now being one of the fastest growing niches within Aprio. Maybe talk about some of the challenges that you ran in, as part of that journey as a practice leader and leaving real estate, coming here, growing your team, moving from Atlanta, moving to Denver, dealing with PPP. What are some of the challenges you had to face in order to really make this a pillar of Aprio going forward?
Yeah, I think anytime you're building anything, you're faced with challenges. Like there's always a certain times within that trajectory that you're flying the plane and building it at the same time. And there's certainly been some of those times. I think PPP and ERC was a really good example of that. But even within the practice itself, it, in many times your needs are outpacing your capability, even internal to the firm. So a lot of the challenges are needs arising, and then having to build the capability subsequent of the needs arising. I think anybody in our space, anybody within professional services, certainly in CPA firms, understands that challenge. As you're growing, you're constantly facing that challenge. Most, very rarely, whether it's a client engagement or something related to the firm, are we getting the whole team that we need in order to be able to do this before we land the prospect, before we start going down the road of a different business. So I think everybody is certainly familiar with that, with those sets of challenges. People, right? I tell people all the time, especially when I talk about Aprio growth, it's about talent, right? It's about growing talent, finding talent. I think we have the same challenges here. It's a niche business. My secret is it's not an overly tough niche business. Like I always remind people, we're not selling derivatives or doing something. This is selling food, selling services, franchise business. So maybe a little bit of an advantage there. But as you move upstream, everything gets complicated. So finding the talent in order to service that increasing level of complexity, I think is always the biggest challenge. And I probably spend 20% of my time dealing, finding talent and managing people, which presents challenges every day.
So my guess is, as this is getting built, and I think a lot of people that I talk to are really starting to say niche is a critical way to scale a firm going forward. And sometimes the firm is being intentful. Sometimes it's an individual like yourself that needs to rise up to the occasion and, accept the fact that they want to go down this path. But, thinking about time and where you're at today, you talked about 20% talent, managing people. Are you still billing now? Are you running the practice? Are you still running clients? Maybe a little bit about what that evolution's been like.
Yeah. Yes. The answer is yes. I don't. Maybe I'll have to talk to Richard one day about this, but I don't think we don't really have folks that are doing just one or the other, right? We're wearing many hats. I probably. I am still billing. I am still running client. I am still running with clients. I don't know that I'll ever stop doing that. Yeah, that's certainly a large portion of my passion. I love consulting. I love providing value in that way. I am being a little bit more picky today of which I'm doing or my partners are doing. So that certainly gives me, that advantage. But it's certainly one of both. And I don't know, maybe somebody figures out a way to do it without doing that. But honestly, in order to know, and really understand the capabilities that you have to build out in the practice, I feel like you really need to be in the middle of that client space. Some of the stuff that we're doing, especially with technology innovation right now, without being in the middle of it and understanding the pain of the client, we would never have come up with the idea of building this type of technology, right? Or let's figure out a way to connect these two systems. And then the same thing, I'm a tax, traditionally I was a tax partner. Like that's my background. And some of the stuff that we're doing that I think we're on the front edge of, really has to do, with that knowledge.
Yeah.
You mentioned PPP and ERC. When COVID hit, it was really the building of that practice, which I think everybody on hindsight was like, of course we're building that practice. But at that time, literally, I was actually doing a podcast with Gary when they started shutting down restaurants in Chicago and Ohio. Really, what it was is it came out of looking for capital for clients that we thought were going bankrupt today. And so again, I think being in the middle of that client need is what gave us kind of the foresight in early March that, hey, this is a business that we need to be in. Honestly, at the time, we didn't know, we had no idea where we were going to provide value. We just knew that there was going to be a place for us to provide value. And that, that whole deal turned into something way different than I would have drawn it up for, at the beginning. But I think that's a good example of just having to be in the middle of the mix in order to be able to spin stuff like that up.